My parents own a vacation home in Quincy, California. It's a 2-acre property completely surrounded by thick woods. When my siblings and I were kids, we used to go there all the time as a family, but now that we're all grown up, our schedules never really match anymore. So going together like before just doesn't happen. Back when I had just started talking to my girlfriend Rose in the early stage of our relationship, I told her about that place. It was around our 5th date, sometime in October. That's when Quincy becomes unbelievably beautiful, the leaves start changing colors, and everything looks almost unreal. I casually suggested the idea of us spending a weekend there together, not thinking too much of it. But the moment I said it, she looked at me and said, "Let's do it." Just 2 days later, we were already packing. Everything felt a little too fast, but at the same time, exciting. I picked her up from her house, and we started our road trip. The drive was about 5 hours long. At first, we talked non-stop about everything: TV shows, family, random childhood memories. Then, when we got a little tired, we put on some comedians and podcasts just to pass the time. By the time we reached Quincy, it was already starting to feel different, quiet, almost too quiet. Before heading to the house, I drove her through the small village nearby. I wanted to show her how nice and peaceful the place was. It looked just like I remembered: calm, clean, and almost empty. About 10 minutes later, we reached the house. At the entrance of the driveway, there's a small wooden fence. We always keep it closed whenever the place is empty. There's no lock on it. It's just there to stop random people from casually walking in. I stepped out of the car to open it. For a second, I just stood there. Something felt off, but I ignored it, opened the fence, got back in the car, and we drove onto the property. My dad usually hires landscapers every couple of weeks during the summer and into the fall, so the place was very well maintained. Everything looked neat, clean, untouched. Rose was impressed the moment we got out of the car. We had arrived just in time for lunch, so we unpacked our stuff first. I showed her around the house, every room, every corner. Then I went outside and turned on the hot tub so the water would be ready for later. After that, we went back into town to eat at one of my favorite spots. Once we finished, we spent some time walking around, doing a little sightseeing. We even visited the Plumas County Museum, but as time passed, it started getting dark, and that's when things slowly began to feel different again. We headed back to the house. Later that night, we sat in the hot tub for a while. It was on the back deck, right under the awning. Outside, it was freezing cold, too cold, and the woods around us had gone completely silent. But sitting in the hot tub actually felt really good, at least for a while. Then suddenly, we both heard it, the clear, sharp crushing of leaves nearby, like someone slowly walking around us. We froze. Our first thought was simple: a bear. Without wasting even a second, we both jumped out of the hot tub and ran straight inside the house. I quickly shut the door behind us and turned off every single light inside and outside. I thought maybe the lights were attracting some wild animal. My heart was pounding as I slowly moved toward the window, expecting to see a bear outside. But what I saw instead completely changed everything. It wasn't an animal. It was the silhouette of a person walking along the side of the house. I didn't wait. I ran to the back door, locked it immediately, and shut the blinds tight. Then I whispered to Rose to stay completely quiet. Outside, the footsteps didn't stop. They kept moving, slowly circling the house, step by step, closer and closer until they reached the front door, and then silence, a long, heavy silence. Then suddenly, a knock. A voice followed. "It's the police." We looked at each other, confused. I walked toward the front door, but didn't open it. I spoke through the closed door, asking if there was a problem. The man on the other side replied that they received a breaking and entering call. That didn't make sense. I told him that the nearest neighbor was at least a quarter mile away. For a moment, he didn't respond. There was a strange pause. Then he said, "I just need you to open the door, sir." Something felt wrong. I refused. I told him I wasn't comfortable opening the door. That's when I decided to check outside myself. I carefully bent the blinds just enough to see through. It was twilight, dark but still bright enough to see the property clearly. There was no police car. Nothing. I turned to Rose and whispered, "I don't think that's a real cop." The man knocked again. I spoke louder this time, telling him I didn't see any police car outside, so I wouldn't be opening the door. This time, he didn't respond at all. Silence again. We waited. A couple of minutes passed, and we thought maybe he had left. We stayed in the living room, quietly talking, trying to calm down. Then suddenly, heavy footsteps moved away from the door. He had been standing there the entire time without us even knowing. I went back to the window and checked again. No one was there anymore, but that didn't make it better. The house was surrounded by woods. He could be anywhere from any direction. We made one decision right then. We were not going outside again that night. The only time I stepped out briefly was to turn off the bubbles in the hot tub. After that, we locked ourselves in the bedroom, watched movies, and eventually tried to sleep. Before sleeping, I took my dad's shotgun from the closet and kept it under the bed. The next day, we tried to act normal. We went hiking in Pluma National Forest, then out to eat, and later watched a movie at a nearby theater. But when we came back to the house, it was getting dark again. As I drove onto the property, Rose suddenly screamed, "Oh my God." I almost swerved the car, thinking I was about to hit something. I slammed the brakes and asked what happened. She pointed toward the side of the house. Someone was there, a person quickly walking away from the house toward the woods, disappearing into the darkness. I tried to calm her down, even though I was scared too. She kept saying someone was stalking us. I told her we had a gun and we were leaving in the morning anyway, but still something didn't feel right. I parked the car as close to the house as possible and we rushed inside. I checked every door and every window, making sure everything was locked. That night, we didn't go outside at all. We packed our things so we could leave early in the morning, then stayed in the bedroom. After watching a movie, we went to sleep. Sometime later, I woke up. There was a strange scraping noise coming from outside. It would happen every few seconds, then stop, then start again. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I knew something was out there, and deep down, I felt it was that same person. I waited until the noise completely stopped. Then slowly, quietly, I got out of bed, making sure not to wake Rose. I walked to the window and slightly bent the blinds, and in that exact moment, I came face to face with a man standing right outside, staring in. He saw me. I fell backward and screamed, "Jesus Christ!" Rose woke up instantly, terrified. I didn't waste time explaining. I grabbed the shotgun from under the bed, made sure it was loaded, and ran outside through the back door. I started screaming like a madman and fired into the air. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed through the woods. I just wanted to scare him and anyone else who might have been out there. Then I ran back inside and locked the door. After that, I told Rose everything. Strangely, I felt a rush of adrenaline after going outside like that. For a moment, it made me feel like whoever was out there wouldn't come back. But that feeling didn't last long. When we got back into bed, every small sound from outside made me tense again. We somehow made it through the night. The next morning, before leaving, I called the police and filed a report about everything that had happened. Since then, my family and I have gone back to the house a few times, and thankfully, that man never came back. At least, not while we were there. I was driving through Colorado in the middle of the night. At that point, I was near Tabernash, and it had to be around 28 a.m. I pulled into a gas station, got some fuel, grabbed a quick snack, and then got right back on the road. The highway was completely empty. At that hour, especially on those roads, you don't really see other cars. Still, I kept my speed in check. It was late, I was tired, and you never know where a cop might be waiting. I was moving at about 55 on this winding road when suddenly those dreaded flashing lights appeared in my rearview mirror. I looked again. A car was right behind me with red and white lights blinking. I quickly checked my speed. I was barely 2 months over the limit. So I pulled over to the side and the vehicle followed, stopping right behind me. Honestly, I was already annoyed. I had never been pulled over before. I'm always a careful driver. Right away, something felt off, like this stop didn't make sense. The officer walked up to my window. I rolled it down. He immediately asked license and registration. I stayed calm but alert. "Can you tell me why you pulled me over?" I asked. He replied, "I'll get to that in a minute." I said, "I wasn't speeding, I wasn't swerving, and all my lights are working. If this is an unlawful stop, I don't feel comfortable handing over my license." Then I really looked at him. And that's when things started to feel wrong. He was wearing a black vest that looked similar to police gear, but nowhere did it say police. His badge didn't say it either. Instead, it read Criminal Task Force. He kept insisting I hand over my license, so I asked him directly, "Are you actually a cop?" He said, "I'm part of an undercover unit." Then he asked again for my license. I responded, "What's your badge number?" He refused, said he didn't have to give it. I knew that wasn't true. Then I noticed something else. His lights were only red and white, no blue at all. I wasn't completely sure what that meant, but combined with everything else, it made the situation feel even more suspicious. Then he told me, "Step out of the car." I said calmly, "I'm not comfortable doing that unless you call a supervisor here." His voice got louder, more aggressive. "Step out of the car?" he repeated. I answered, "I don't think you're a real officer. If you were, calling a supervisor wouldn't be a problem." I rolled my window up slightly. That clearly made him angry. He shouted, "Open the door," and placed his hands on my window, trying to unlock it. My heart started pounding. I pushed his hands away, started the car, and put it into drive. He yelled, "Stop!" But I didn't. I hit the gas and took off. My heart was racing. On one hand, I was terrified I might be wrong. If he was real, I could be heading straight to jail. But on the other hand, if I was right, then I had just escaped something far worse. As I kept driving at the speed limit, I saw him again in my mirror lights still flashing, coming up fast behind me. I had to act. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I told the operator, "Someone is chasing me, and I think he's a fake cop." I explained everything. He refused to give a badge number. His car isn't marked. There are no blue lights, and his uniform doesn't say police. She asked for my location and a few more details. Then she told me to head straight to the nearest station, Fraser Winter Park Police Department, and said an officer would meet me there. I drove as fast as I safely could. He followed me for a while, lights still on. And then suddenly, at an intersection, his lights shut off. He turned right and disappeared into the darkness. Just like that, he was gone. In that moment, I knew for sure my instincts had been right the entire time. That man was pretending to be a cop. I still made it to the station. There was a real officer sitting in his car in the parking lot. As soon as I pulled in, he stepped out like he already knew it was me. I told him everything. Every detail, the man's face, his car, the exact intersection where he turned. He took down my contact information in case they needed me later to identify him. A few minutes later, I was back on the road. And even now, I keep thinking, if I had stepped out of that car, there's no telling how this would have ended.